Hi, and welcome to Spectrum Projection, a media review podcast where we analyse characters who may fit into the autism spectrum. I'm Hannah, a naturally autistic person with a master's in literature focusing on the analysis of disability in fiction and in memoirs.
And I'm Tilda, and this podcast contains 200% of your daily recommended salt intake.
Trigger warnings in the description.
Okay, so how have you been since last week?
Pretty much the same, as has everyone for the past 6 months. Every day is basically the same, but It's been fun to have this project. I really liked how the first one came out.
My parents, when I call them now, or when they call me, they've given up on asking me, oh, what have you been doing recently? It's taken years for them to realise that I do exactly the same thing every single day.
No, my family knew that about me from the beginning. If anything else should have been an indicator for autism, it should have been that.
I mean, it's because I'm living in, an exotic foreign country. I think people who don't live abroad in a different country, they don't realise that it's a very different experience from, going on a holiday to England to just living your day-to-day life there. Yeah. What have I done today? I went to the grocery store and I got some bread.
I spent my day hating the Conservatives. Like every good British citizen should.
Yeah. Oh no, this podcast is getting political.
Oh my god, a podcast talking about disabilities that hates the right wing? What a shocker.
If you're a right winger listening to this,
how? Why? Why are you here? Oh god, we're actually going to talk about something that's a bit positive this week, which is fun.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I mean, at the very least, it's not got heavy subject matter, which is such a refreshing thing after last week.
Yeah, real low-stakes storytelling, which is something I really love in, any genre.
Yeah, I will keep saying week. We haven't really figured out a release schedule for this yet, because obviously we're new to all of this, so we're still figuring out. Every 2 weeks is currently our goal, but we've never done this before, so...
We'll see.
We will see. We make no promises.
You'll get your episode when we get to it. God, stop pressuring us.
So this week we're talking about a very different thing, not sci-fi, not even live action. We're going to talk about the adult animation, which makes it sound like it's about sex. For once, no. It's the animation Bob's Burgers, which has been around for a real long time now, which I was surprised when I looked into it.
When did it start?
So it started in around September 2014.
God.
No, 2013.
Wow.
So yeah, old. 7 years now, going on to 8. And honestly, does not show that age.
Yeah. She looks good for her age.
Does Bob's Burgers. It was created by Lauren Bouchard, whose name I'm probably butchering, because, English and slightly not English name. When we mention Bob's Burgers in the context of autism, there will be a really obvious thing that a lot of people will probably think of.
Hannah, don't look now, but there's an elephant behind you. There's just a big elephant in the room behind you. Maybe we should talk about the elephant.
Okay, so you may think if we're going to talk about Bob's Burgers, we're going to talk about, in the pilot episode, they make a joke about autism. A lot of people know this, but they haven't actually seen the joke, and I forced myself to watch it.
I haven't watched this since I was the pilot, and I remember it being pretty fucking bad.
Yeah, it's basically, feel free to skip ahead. We'll put a time code on the actual video if you want to skip ahead and not hear this joke if you think it would be upsetting to you. But basically what happens is, at one point, Gene, who is the son of Bob in this, throws a bunch of fries on the floor in front of Tina, who's the teenage daughter of this family. And he said, because they jokingly say, oh, she's autistic, to explain why she's not very smart. And then when he throws the fries on the floor, he asks how many are on the floor. And she says, 20, and he's only thrown 3. And they say, you're the worst kind of autistic, you can't even count. Which is way worse than what I was expecting from the show.
Bob's Burgers kind of started out as, poor guy's Family Guy.
Yeah.
It's Family Guy, but without, the fancy gore animation, basically.
Yeah, it's Family Guy, but a lot of the Family Guy-ness of what they're trying to do just comes across as very mean-spirited jokes.
I mean, Family Guy is mean-spirited. It's about this family that all fucking hate each other.
Yeah, but Family Guy is also about that extremity of, really extreme, shocking jokes.
Yeah.
And Bob's Burgers doesn't really do that to the same extent. The first episode, it really feels like Bob hates his family.
Yeah.
And his kids. And he jokingly says, you're my family and I love you, but you're all terrible. And that's funny when you know he actually cares about them.
Yeah. I'm so fucking tired of that trope. Why would I want to watch a show that's about like a group of people who can't fucking stand each other?
Yeah, I already gotta go to work and meet people.
Don't say
I'm
that.
saying as a joke. I
It's
do
a
get
joke.
on with my workplace.
It's a joke. It's a joke.
It's a joke. Please don't fire me. No, it genuinely is a joke. But like, it is the thing of like, I don't understand why I would choose to watch something about people bickering if it's something I'm doing to like entertain myself.
Yeah.
But like, basically, we aren't even talking about Tina in this one. Maybe we will in the future.
Well, to finish this point, I think it's fair to say that Bob's Burgers gets a lot better as the show goes on. I think after the first season, pretty much.
Skip the first season, but once they hit their stride, they never falter. I cannot think of a single bad episode after the first season. Really.
And once they like stop trying to be Family Guy and just it's about a family that of really strange people who get on each other's nerves, but they do care about and love each other, like, you know, a healthy family.
Yeah, and that comes up in a couple of times in the 2 episodes we're going to talk about today. We should probably explain what the show is and who we're going to talk about from the show, because we did actually talk back and forth for a bit. Like, we thought maybe we'd start with Tina because she's the one who they make the autistic joke about, and there are some legitimate understandings of that, like, spectrum in her, because of her general like social awkwardness and everything, but I think a lot of that comes across as just teenage girl social awkwardness. But I think you could still make that argument. I found it a lot more interesting to apply the autistic lens to Jean,
the middle child,
who is fantastic.
So should we talk about what Bob's Burgers is, just in case people don't know?
Yeah. Like we said, it's an animated show for adults, which in this case just means they can sometimes push the boundaries of what's appropriate a little more. They can be gross, but not like boogers.
Yeah, it's not the kind of adult animation that takes that, you know, the fact that they can do, you know, curse words and sex jokes means that that's literally all they do, which I find so exhausting. It's such a waste of the concept of animation for adults.
Yeah, in Bob's Burgers, it's about this family, the Belchers, who the dad of which is called Bob, hence Bob's Burgers, and he runs a literal restaurant called Bob's Burgers.
Yeah.
It's not a very good restaurant. It does not make money.
Yeah.
And the whole show is a sitcom of this family kind of like scraping by with their almost failing burger shop and the kids going to school and them just trying to keep it together. And it's a very sitcom. The raciness of it, if you're worried about it being too mature or out there for you, it's only as bad as like a sitcom aimed at like an audience that isn't young children, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, it would be about the level you'd expect from a sitcom that's like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but maybe with a tiny bit more edge.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
About the same audience level. Like, it's never going to be, like, explicit. They do sometimes, very rarely, have moments with blood in it, but it's just because Bob is squeamish of blood.
Yeah.
And that makes for a funny scene. But they never have, like, straight-up gore. They never have sex. When they do curse, it's always in very, like, ways that you would expect would really happen. It's not...
Yeah.
really bizarre and
I think it's like, you know, adult in the same way that real life is adult in a way.
Yeah.
Like it's that's the one of the things I really appreciate about Bob's Burgers, it's that it feels very grounded in reality. Like that's the other thing about, you know, in a sitcom you can have a family of characters that are constantly cruel to each other and say horrible things to each other and then like have them reset in the next episode to just being fine because they're not real people, they can't hurt each other. Whereas in Bob's Burgers you get the sense that, you know, it feels like a realistic portrayal of family where they say things that, you know, they get on each other's nerves and they say mean things or whatever, but it never goes to the point where, like, in reality, the relationship should be irreparable.
Yeah, and I think that's really important as to why spoiler alert for my final judgment on this, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. I think it's a really good one because it has that kind of sense of not straight up continuity, because it's not like, this causes that in episodes. But
yeah,
there is a sense of, like, these family members do love each other and do care about each other to care if what they say and do upsets each other in any meaningful way.
Yeah.
Because if we look at Gene as an autistic character, the idea that his family will go out of their way to try and make him comfortable and happy without making him go through anything he's not comfortable doing is great. And we're going to talk about it in 2 different episodes. They're from different seasons. They're quite far apart. The first one we're going to talk about is The Laser-inth, which is Season 7, Episode 18. It's written by Scott Jacobson and directed by Mauricio Pardo, which hopefully I didn't butcher. This one is the main one that I kind of saw before I decided that this would be a good topic to talk about.
I can see why.
We'll go through both episodes one at a time, and then I think we'll just do a sum up.
Yeah,
at the
sounds
end.
Good.
Just to say his name up front, because I think he does deserve a lot of credit for his performance in this show, because he is extremely funny. Gene is played by Eugene Meerman, who is so funny.
He is.
He is a great improv person as well. Like, I don't know, improv artist, I guess, but a lot of Bob's Burgers' style is a lot more based on improv between the actors.
Yeah.
And it definitely improves with time.
I think that's sorry, this is the thing that like I really love about the show that makes it feel so much, reminding me of my own family, is that sometimes they will keep in when like an actor is like kind of breaking up and like starting to laugh. Like the characters acknowledge that what the other character said is stupid and weird and goofy because they start laughing the same way that you would in real life when your family says something weird or stupid.
I mean, I think it's a lot cleaner in the later episodes because this is as late as season 7, which still is a couple years ago now. But the very opening of this, it's Bob's birthday. That's the main plot thing of this. It's not about
the
Bob,
instigator
though.
of the plot, rather.
Bob's wife, Linda, who is also very funny.
Yeah, I love Linda.
The guy who plays her is very funny.
Mm.
And basically they start off this whole thing of like Linda tries to bake him a muffin for his birthday and there's no flour in the muffin, so it's basically muffin soup. And the first thing Gene says is like, yeah, don't expect things to be baked all the time, you sexist pig. And it's like, that is such a thing that it reminds me of my own younger brother who would just echo things he hears.
Yeah.
In contexts where it's not necessarily fitting with the tone of the conversation, but just going really strong.
I mean, it's also that, Gene is a mama's boy. That's another, I think they get a lot of good comedy out of the... You know how sometimes little boys will be weirdly obsessed with their mom? Not in necessarily, an unhealthy babe, or fuck Freud. Puh.
Fuck Freud. But yeah, not in a Freudian way.
But definitely in a strange way.
But, it does actually try and go into the fact that, kids do love their mum.
Yeah.
Not every kid hates their parents.
Yeah.
And especially in this one where, obviously they're sitting at the breakfast table having breakfast together, and Bob starts reading the paper and Gene just yells, can't we have one place in this house that's safe from reading? And it's so blunt and honest and transparent, and it's really strikes me as that thing on the autistic spectrum where sometimes you just have no filter whatsoever. You will just say what's in your mind. And it seems like the rest of the family is just used to Gene being like this.
Yeah.
It's never a thing of can you calm down, can you chill out? It's
always... I think none of the Belcher children has a very good filter. Apart from, Louise, but it's also, she just chooses to say whatever she wants because she's just that kind of person.
Just to make it really clear, we're not going to talk about the subplots in these episodes, I don't think, because they really don't connect. And I think it's better for the comedy that way, but in these ones, don't misunderstand us. We still love Tina. We still adore Louise. Louise's voice actor, Kristen Schaal, also plays one of our favourite characters of all time.
Who we might do an episode on later on.
I bet you can guess who it is, because it's not very hard to guess.
It's a secret.
It's a secret. But
yeah, there's another plot in this episode where Linda, Tina, and Louise go... I forget why they're at the mall, but...
They're at the mall because they are going to meet Linda's friend Gretchen, who is a hot mess, who is working as a doll barber. It's weird.
Basically, they go to a weird, Build-A-Bear doll shop, and it's a whole thing. But we're not going to talk about that.
It's not relevant to this, but let us make it extremely clear. It's not because we dislike those characters. It's just not really relevant to what we're talking about today. But I do love Louise, and I love Tina, and in case you couldn't tell, I do relate extremely hard to Tina, despite the fact that her interest in boys is completely unlike how I operate. I remember being this
I really
teenager.
relate to Tina. I mean, I relate, because I kind of relate to the weird... you're horny, but in an awkward way. That is just
We'll save it for a Tina episode.
Let's talk about it later. Yeah.
But basically, what happens is Bob reads the paper, and in the paper he sees that there is going to be a laser light show of his favourite performance from when he was younger, which is General Insanity by Centipede, which is a fantastic 80s rocker glam rock thing. Mm-hmm. It's so on point.
It's very funny.
And he keeps saying about how much he loved it when he was younger, and he's really sad because today's the last day it's going to be running, and he really wants to go, and nobody wants to go with him because it sounds lame, except for Gene, who says, sure, I'll go. It's your birthday. I'll make it have fun for you. And it's really sweet of him, actually.
Yeah, but he is also, really into music and lasers, I think he says.
Yeah, I think he literally says at one point, future Gene would be into watching lasers. It's this kid knows who he is. Yeah. And honestly, so many kids are like that. I used to tutor kids, and there's so many kids who just know exactly who they are, and you kind of feel jealous of them for knowing that. But, he continues being very blunt and honest about this, but he's willing to give it a try. He says at one point, I think he says, you keep saying centipede like it's a real thing. Do you know it's not a real thing? It's really sweet of him to, make this effort. But the main thing okay, this is a little bit of a side tangent, but I do want to say one of my favourite jokes from this episode, which is, maybe you shouldn't know too much going into this laser light show, Gene. I think it'll be better that way. And then Gene just says, like the Iraq War. And Bob just kind of nonchalantly goes, sort of.
There are some amazing one-liners in Bob's Burgers. Like, in every episode, they will have like that one that just punches you really hard in the stomach, and you think about it for years, and it makes you laugh every time.
I mean, Gene is really good at that because, again, of that blunt honesty.
Yeah.
There's so many points in this, like, someone asked them if they've got ticks, as in tickets for the show, and Gene replies, not anymore, I use a spray and a medicated collar, and I stay out of tall grass. It's like, it's so blunt and straightforward, and like, it's not played as him trying to make a joke, it's always played as him taking that situation 100% straight, which is wonderful. He's just so lovely. So the main bit of the plot that we're concerned with is the actual performance of this laser light show. They go in and they sit down in these seats, and it's all dingy and gross and old. And what happens is, Gene has deliberately not been told what's going to happen, because Bob doesn't want to oversell it. He really loves it, and he makes a point of saying, I don't want to oversell it.
It's that thing where, like, you really love something, but you're afraid that if you talk about it the way you feel about it, you can set the other person up to be disappointed. Like, kind of like when I introduced you to Star Trek.
I was literally going to say the exact same example. Why was the first episode of Deep Space Nine so bad? We said this last week, but it remains true at all times.
So it can get better afterwards. It sets you up to think that this is going to be terrible.
You start at the bottom, you can only go up.
Exactly.
But basically, they get into the show.
At least it's not Next Gen that is unwatchable for like the first 2 seasons.
Oh God, don't. Let's not get into how bad Next Gen is, because I'm sure we will have plenty of time.
It gets good.
I mean, we will have plenty of time to get into it when we inevitably talk about it.
I just feel like I have to say that it gets good. Like, I do like Next Gen.
Somewhat.
Just when they actually make it good after the first 2 seasons. If you're going to watch Next Gen, if you haven't seen it, you know how people sometimes say, oh, you can skip this
skip the first
book or the
3
first...
of Next Gen.
First 2, I'd say. I think the third one has some good in it. But what I'm saying is, sometimes people will say to me, like, oh yeah, you get into this, but you should skip the first book or the first season or whatever. And you kind of go, yeah, but I want to watch the whole thing, just, so I get a sense of it. No, with Next Gen, literally skip the first 2 seasons. It's
same thing with Bob's Burgers.
Nothing of value happens. They just, waste a female character and the actress left because it fucking sucked. And then she comes back later and actually gets to do things. Anyway, I digress.
We should make this the new, we should make a new backing in music for just Hannah and Tilda get caught in a Star Trek diversion.
Star Trek's time vortex.
But anyway, they sit down in the theatre and the lights start to go down. And Gene feels really nervous. Like, they do a sound check and he literally goes, ow, that's loud. And the guy next to him is like, here it comes, here it comes. And Gene's just screaming, here what comes, lollipop hippie? He's so terrified. And then, obviously, they start a laser light show. And if you've never been to one or you don't know what one is...
I've never been to one.
I mean, I've been to some, fireworks type things.
I assume it's like a lo-fi 80s version of an Hatsune Miku concert.
I mean, you're not far off, but, very loud. It is still a concert, but also, a lot of really bright strobing lights in different colours.
Oh, God. I do hate concerts. I've never understood why people go to live music. It's like, oh yeah, it's like the band is playing a version of their song, but it's not as good as on the CD, and you can't see things, and there's people all around you.
Man, I thought the Next Gen haters would come after you. The live music people will actively kill you. My sister will listen to this and kill you. I hope she doesn't get this far. I'm sorry, Sarah Jane.
I'm happy that it can make people happy, but I just do not get it. Even when it's like a band or an artist I care about, because I'm just like, oh man, I could just listen to this song on Spotify and get a way better experience.
I mean, I need to say this is going to be coming entirely from personal experience and from other I guess first-hand anecdotal evidence, so feel free to feel like there's not much to this, but it's fairly common, at least in autistic people I've known, for concerts and stage performances and anything that's a live performance thing, even if it's not really loud, even if it's not really overwhelming, to just create a huge unsettling amount of anxiety. Because there is this hyper empathy of oh god, but what if they're nervous to be on stage?
We talked about this earlier, some time ago, when I because I have that thing where if I can tell that the person on stage is nervous. When I was in university, someone invited me to a comedy night, open mic night, and I've never been so panicky in my seeing the young awkward university age boys commenting hi guys, what's the deal with pregnant women? Or it wasn't as bad as that, but you could tell that the person is nervous and no one is really laughing, and it's I want to die. But when I see something that is a professional level, I do not get nervous that same way, because in those cases, like, I just assume that the person know what they're doing.
I mean, for me, it's a thing of, like, empathy that is really coloured by my own experience, because, like, obviously I used to have much more severe social anxiety, and there is a point, no matter where I am, no matter how good my mood is, no matter how much therapy I do, where I sit down in the theatre and the lights start to go down and I immediately am struck with complete panic. People have seen it happen and people make fun of me for it. It has happened at every show I've ever been to. Even ones where I was looking forward to it universally. The second I'm in the theatre, it's just instant panic, because it's like, oh god, what if I was on stage though? It's like, you're not. You don't have to do Hamilton, Hannah. Just sit down.
If it helps, I think you're pretty good at, like, disguising it. I remember, because we've been to a couple of shows together, and I sometimes, like, I notice that you're a bit, on edge, but but it's never like, wow, she's freaking out.
No, I mean, that's a lifetime of masking, my dude. It's something you get used to, but with Gene, he's not the kind of person who masks. His character is very much I'm going to say what I feel right now, so he just starts screaming in the theatre. I want to go home, I can't deal with it.
Yeah, because the music starts and it's really loud and flashy.
And the lights just flash in his face. Sensory overload most typically comes from sound overload, but it can be all sorts of things, and in the case of a laser light show, the visuals and the sound are not a good combo.
Yeah, there's a bit, like, because he doesn't, like, completely, like, start screaming, like, immediately. There's a bit where he's also, like, kind of, squirming in his seat and making weird, uncomfortable groaning noises.
Yeah, he does a lot of the, like, sort of rocking in his seat and groaning. And it's supposed to be like he's nervous, but I do read it as that kind of, like, I'm trying to, like, calm myself down before it completely melt down.
Yeah.
And he does. And God bless Bob. He makes mistakes, but he's obviously so excited about seeing this show. It's his last chance to ever see it.
Yeah.
And the second Gene gets upset, he's like, do you want to go? And Gene's like, yeah! But it's your birthday though. It's like, no, but do you want to go? Are you sure? And he just starts screaming and crying, and Bob's like, okay, we're going to leave. We're going to go
like,
now.
Bob is clearly reluctant to leave, like, because, again, this is important to him. But at the end of the day, he clearly prioritizes his kids' comfort.
Like, they go out to the foyer, and, like, it's a bit quieter there, but Gene's still hyperventilating and freaking out. And Bob can see that he's calmed down a little bit, and he asks, do you want to go back in, or do you want to go home? And Gene immediately goes, home! I mean, maybe. It's your birthday, so, And Bob's just, don't worry about it. It's okay.
Yeah. There is a joke where, he's like, oh, kind of like, oh, well, I kind of want to, but no, that's insane. Like, one thing I really like about Bob's character is that he has this sort of push and pull between, he's more selfish impulses, and then, like, kind of pulling back and be like, no, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to, though. But no, I shouldn't. But he always settles for, doing the responsible thing and the caring thing.
If you've never heard Bob's voice, he's got a very deep, very, like, flat voice. Think like Ron from Parks and Rec. He's got quite a deep voice.
I don't think it's quite like Ron's.
No, but, like, if you're trying to imagine what he sounds like, it's very dry. So a lot of the times when he's having this kind of, like, should I go, should I not, it's very, like, funny, just in that kind of insecurity.
This old man in kind of, like, flat monotone voice debating with himself.
It's why it's so sweet when you get to the bit afterwards when they're walking back to the car, and Gene literally says something that I think I've heard my brother say, which is like, I know it's your birthday and you liked it, but you didn't tell me that it was going to be the loudest, scariest thing ever. And it's like, what Bob tries to do is then try and, like, meet Gene halfway to experience this thing with him, because he knows that Gene would enjoy it.
They settle in the car, and Bob starts playing the album, because I think he has it in his car.
He has it on CD.
Or on a cassette, I forget.
It's on a cassette. Oh, God.
Remember cassettes?
Just about. We're, like, in that weird middle age for that. But, basically, when he puts in the music, he explains what would happen in the show in an environment where Gene can kind of process it. So the music is way quieter, and they both lie back in their, like, car seats, so it's like they're in the auditorium.
Isn't it the planetarium?
Planetarium, yeah, because that comes up later.
Because they're about to close the planetarium. And I think Bob has one of those, like, laser pointer things.
It's like a car lighter.
Yeah.
He takes it out, because they have a really crappy old car, so he takes out the car lighter, and he just starts, like, tracing shapes above them with the car lighter. And obviously because it's animation, they transitioned into the actual show, but, like, he's showing Gene it in a way which isn't really overwhelming. And Bob literally says, I mean, I don't want to oversell it, but it changes you forever. And it's like, part of me thinks maybe Bob is on the spectrum too. Just in the sense of seeing him so hyperfixated and excited about this. Like, it smash cuts at one point to him as a teenager watching it, and he's just, like, rocking back and forward. Like, oh my god, yes! Tilda can attest, I've done that for several things I'm obsessed with. Let's not name names, because I'm embarrassed to be known. But yes, it can be like that. And it's a great feeling at the time, and it's kind of nice to see Bob trying to share that experience with Jean.
Yeah. It's a very sweet moment, like them, having this experience together.
And, like, obviously the plot of the story is that Jean's going to go back and see it.
Yeah, because now that he's heard about it, he kind of wants to see it, and he feels more comfortable. Because I think because he knows what to expect this time around.
Yeah, it's the structure thing. Again, part of why I get so nervous being in the theatre is, like, I don't know what's going to happen. I get less nervous if it's a show where I know what all the plot beats are going to be, or if it's Hamilton where I know what all the songs are going to be.
Seeing Wicked for the 15th time.
15th time. Schools just go to Wicked a lot in London. It's
schools be going to Wicked.
It's a weird thing, but it's, there could be worse things. At least it was a decent musical. But basically, Jean does still say, I'm not going to be massively comfortable at this show, but I feel prepared enough to risk it, which I think is an important distinction. He says, maybe it's worth going deaf and peeing my pants a little. So it's like, he wants to do it for himself as much as he wants to do it for Bob. There isn't there's a tendency to do these storylines and have this plot point of, they're only doing it to prove something to the person they care about. And that's bad.
Yeah.
They should still be comfortable pushing themselves. Like, that should still be the number one priority. And it's very clear here that Bob won't make him go back in.
Yeah.
And if Gene changes his mind, he's not going to make him commit to staying in there. It's a very sweet thing. Yeah. And then there's, like, a whole bit with the B-plot, more Tina, Louise.
And also, should we just skip the bit where they sneak back? Because basically, the tickets they got, you weren't allowed to leave the building and still come back. So there's a bit where they have to, like, sneak back into the building. And it's very funny, but it's not really relevant to our analysis.
Yeah, there's a thing with Cool Nick and Uncool Nick, which is really funny, but it's not relevant to this. Watch the episode, it is very good. It's on Amazon Prime in the UK, so if you do want to watch it, you can watch it legitimately through there.
Yeah.
Not that we're recommending streaming it illegally, of course.
Not that we're recommending getting Amazon Prime, because, Jeff Bezos is a bad man.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, in big quotes.
It's my personal opinion.
Yeah. They try and sneak back into the planetarium, and they have to sneak back in behind this giant model of a rock, like it's of a planet.
Oh, yeah,
And basically they make a whole joke about, like, the show is about saving rock and roll by rolling a rock down a hill. So they
up a hill, isn't it?
Up a hill,
because it's that Greek guy.
Sisyphus.
Yeah. I know things.
We both studied English.
Yeah, we studied English, not Greek.
Basically, they try and sneak back in. Bob's really hesitant because, like, this seems like a lot of risks for us to do this because there's a guard there. And Gene says, my other favourite line in this episode, which is, just imagine yourself inside the planetarium having an amazing climax, meaning climax of the show. And Bob's just like, yeah, maybe don't word it like that, though, Gene.
Oh, that's another, again, that's when Bob's Burgers actually, I think, utilizes the fact that it's an adult-rated animation show to its best abilities, where it can make but when kids say something that they don't realize is massively inappropriate. Mm-hmm.
That's a very big autism move, but it's also a big source of comedy in this show.
And also, a big kid thing.
Yeah, and with specifically comparing June to Tina, Tina's inappropriateness is just out of curiosity, whereas Jean's is just out of naivety. And the difference in those jokes is always really funny. So they sneak back in, and what happens is June gets in and suddenly he's really nervous again. He's not sure if he wants to. So Bob says, you can do this, I believe in you, which I don't always feel great about those messages in this, because it's like, sometimes you just can't, and that's fine. You know your limits.
Yeah, well, sometimes you just need that little confidence boost.
In this case, it is a confidence boosting, but he does also make an effort to make it more accommodating to Gene. He makes him some real gross earplugs out of some napkin that he, like, smushes up in his mouth.
It's so gross. It's adorable, but also disgusting.
And Gene puts the earplugs in, and suddenly he's still really nervous when it starts, but he ends up really, really loving it. Like, he gets just as excited as Bob did when he was a teenager, and it's a really sweet moment of them bonding over this. And it ends with them driving back, and Bob is just completely deafened by the show. Like, he should have worn earplugs.
Yeah.
And, like, Gene is saying, like, I really loved it, Dad. And then Bob can't hear him, so he shouts, what? And Gene shouts, I loved it, Dad. And Bob shouts, I love you too, Gene.
Aww.
It's just really sweet. It's, like, such a, like, honest bonding thing. And, like, there's never any kind of, like, weird resentment that would have been in it if it had happened in the first season of the show.
Yeah.
Like this.
I don't think first season Bob would be so, accommodating and caring.
He would have kicked off with the rest of the family not wanting to go, and you know what? It would have made for a worse episode. I'm glad they went the direction they did with this one.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to talk about another episode of Volkswagens, as we mentioned before, and this one is Series 8, Episode 13, which is called Cheer Up Sleepy Jean. It was written by Holly Schlesinger?
That's
German.
definitely butchered.
Yeah. Why do we let me pronounce these? And also H. John Benjamin, a name I can pronounce. And then it was directed by Tyree Dillahay, whose name I hope I've got right. But, it's a Season 8 episode, so it's one season after the last one we talked about. And like last time, it is the A plot focuses on Jean. The B plot isn't massively relevant, unfortunately. It is funny. It's to do with the parents, not the siblings this time. But we won't go into it very much. Maybe we'll mention it once or twice if it's relevant.
Yeah.
But long story short, Jean is friends with this kid Alex.
Or they're not friends at this point. It's that they're going to become friends.
Yeah, this is one of the really interesting things about Bob's Burgers, is because it is a sitcom and you expect it to be the same every week, like The Simpsons. Like, nothing will ever change. These kids will never have any specific new friends and nothing will ever become different. But, like, they introduce Alex, who's, like, this overweight kid. Because Jean's also a little bit overweight. He's just a lazy kid. And
chubby.
They kind of bond over being kids who hate PE.
I mean, Jean is kind of... wanted to say Jean isn't like fat because he's lazy or because he isn't really lazy.
I'd say he just doesn't like sport.
Yeah.
But like basically this episode starts with them bonding in class about trying to get out of having to run, and they both talk about how they managed to figure out how to get out of it by pretending to throw up.
Yeah.
And it's
because the PE teacher is uncomfortable with vomiting, which I get.
Yeah. So, like, their thing is, like, if we gross them out, we won't have to run, and they bond over that, and Jean is then invited to a sleepover by Alex.
Alex is one of those kids that would, like... Because Jean is like, oh, we should hang out, we should have lunch together at the lunchroom. They make a joke about, where else would kids hang out? And Alex is like, oh, better, I can do one better, let's have a sleepover, kid I just started talking to.
And Jean, very awkwardly, like, clearly nervous, she's like, yeah, sure, great. And just smash cut to, but what if I miss my bed? Who's going to give me goodnight kisses? What if his mom doesn't know the bedtime story of Jeannie Weenie, the Beanie Baby who came out of mom's tummy and became a perfect boy? And
it's also his family saying to him, like, you sure you can handle this? Because you've never been able to do a sleepover.
And every time it's come up, you've panicked. And it's very explicitly because of the change of routine.
Yeah.
And, like, Jean, I do love him because he isn't that stereotype of autistic kids that very often comes up of, like, very precise, very nerdy, the Sheldon Cooper thing of, like, everything must be this exact way. But Gene still worries about routine. It's just his routine isn't as strict and, strictly managed as maybe some other autistic people's might be. He gets upset when he doesn't know what's going to happen, which we showed in the last episode we talked about. But it's even more prominent in this one in terms of the actual structure. I really like that Tina, when she's talking to him about it, she tries to explain to him because she's been to one whole sleepover before.
Oh yeah, she's experienced living that teenage life.
And she explains exactly what's going to happen in what order. So you're going to go there, you're going to see a movie, you're going to have some dinner, you're going to brush your teeth with weird toothpaste that you've never seen before, which is the exact thing she says. And I love the specificity
I
of
know.
that. It's so sweet, but it's also very much like the kind of thing that my younger brother would ask. It's like, but what if the toothpaste is different? It's like, that does matter to people who are that specific about routine.
Yeah.
They want to know what's going to be different so they can be prepared.
And it's clearly helping Jean to calm down a little bit, to have, this sort of like a clear layout of how the night's going to go. And I really love that it's Tina, for as much as she is, kind of socially dense, she knows her brother well enough to know that this is what he needs in this situation.
Yeah, it's really sweet. And, like, they do make fun of him because they're siblings, but there's never any, like, actual mean-spirited, again, not mean-spirited, it's just kind of like in a ribbing sibling way of like, Jean, you're being really weird about this. It's never like,
how you can, I mean, at least with me and my brothers, you can say like the most atrocious thing and then like, do you want to play PlayStation together, like a couple of hours later? Like siblings, it's the sort of thing where like you can say and do shit that you could never do to like someone who wasn't in your family. Like that should by all means destroy your relationship. I feel like I'm making my family sound absolutely insane.
I mean, every family is
I don't want to bring up any specifics because some of these things happened when we were young, and I don't really.
Kids are unhinged.
Kids are unhinged, and I don't really, Hugo. I don't hold any grudge against you for that time you maybe tried to murder me. It's cool.
I mean, I'm a
But what I'm saying is, if that had been a stranger, I wouldn't have stopped hanging out with him. But because it was my brother, it was sort of like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tightrope that this show really manages to like walk almost perfectly once we get past that dodgy first season.
Mm-hmm.
And it even shows up when they come out to the restaurant. Bob and Linda are there having a discussion about the B plot, and they show up, and Louise announces, "Oh, Gene got invited to sleep over at Alex's house," and he said yes. And everyone's like, "Wait, really?" They all know exactly what his response is going to be to that, and that he's not comfortable. A lot of Gene's routines are a bit odd. They are weird.
Gene is a very strange kid, and I kind of love it.
Yeah,
there's a bit where I don't know how to say it because it sounds weird when you say it because it is weird.
Mm-hmm.
But because you know what Gene is like as a character, it's like, yeah, that tracks. Basically, he cuddles unused maxi pads from his mom.
Yeah, I think that's the exact quote somewhere. It's like, "Give me one of your maxi pads to lay my head on when I fall asleep."
And Louise is like, the youngest sister is like, yeah, he brings them to school. It feels very healthy, very normal.
And it's like very much the thing of like, this is specifically a weird Gene and his mum thing. Like, he's such a mama's boy, and Linda absolutely loves having him be a mama's boy.
Yeah,
like, she would never hold him back, but they love having this weird relationship that's very odd. And like, she also gives him a bunch of goodnight kisses for later, so she does try and make him feel better, but it feels like she's kind of amping up that anxiety of like, I'm not going to have this later.
Yeah.
Like, bless him, it is like a thing of he is weird, but that's not necessarily the thing he's worried about. Is he's not really worried about Alex finding him weird. He's worried about the fact that this is all going to be different than what his normal setup is. Which is nice. It's a nice change. Some of these like typical sleepover type stories, because they have another one in this show for Louise, and it's usually about the thing of like, I hate sleepovers, I don't get on with other kids my age. It's not really focusing on the thing of like, this causes me anxiety.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but like sleepovers for me when I was younger were just like nothing but a source of stress.
I didn't have a lot of sleepovers. I had a sleepover birthday party once with the girls in my class, and it got weird, but not in a bad way. I was the instigator of the weirdness, because when I get sleepy, I get strange. That's always been a thing. Like, I don't really drink a lot of alcohol because I don't really like the taste. But when I get sleepy, you know this because you've lived with me. Mm-hmm. When I get to a certain point of sleepiness, I get really strange.
Loopy, yeah.
And it used to be way, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't need to get drunk, I just need to get sleepy, and I have, like, the same effect. Anyway, yeah, I didn't have a lot of sleepovers, but they weren't a source of anxiety for me.
And I mean, just to like spoiler this episode slightly, this sleepover does get really weird, but like not in the way you'd maybe expect. Bob goes and drops off Gene at the sleepover, and as soon as Gene's in the house, his whole body language and everything gets so intensely terrified.
Again, he's making anxious noises.
Yeah, he's doing the same like non-verbal kind of like grunting and like rocking back and forward and and he says stuff like, "So I'll see you in half an hour when you come back to check on me, right? Right?" It's like, "Gene, you're gonna be okay. It's all right, hun. You're gonna be okay. Look at me. You're gonna do great." Also, when Bob's telling him to look at him to calm him down, he says, "Open your eyes," and Gene just won't. He won't make eye contact with him. He'll just keep his eyes shut. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to look at you. It's like, "Oh, hun, I've been there." Like, there is also a thing of like, Bob makes it very clear that like, if there really is a problem, he would come back. He doesn't say that to Gene explicitly, but like, it's pretty clear in the way that he leaves and like is very reassuring to him. There's never like, you're gonna tough it out and then you'll be a better person for it, which is kind of the message of this one.
I think maybe like, you feel free to shut me down if I'm completely wrong. But my reading of like a lot of the sort of like way that Gene's family treats him, it feels like it comes across like a family that isn't necessarily educated about autism and like neurodivergence, but they just have a sort of like instinctual good sense to look after their kid.
I mean, that's true of so many people. Like we said in the first episode, getting diagnosis is really hard, and a lot of the time in cases like Gene, where any difficulties he experiences because of his supposed autism aren't ones that really affect his quality of life. Like, he gets anxious about doing social things, but it's never in a capacity where it actually stops him from doing things. Yeah. So his family are just like, cool, this is just how Gene is. Yeah. We'll accommodate him as best we can. Yeah,
like the thing with trying to force eye contact is not necessarily helpful. Like, you understand why Bob is doing it, because he thinks that, that's some way of reassuring him. But again, he's not doing it because, you're supposed to, in quotation mark, that make eye contact with people. He's doing it because he's trying to help his kid.
Like, refocus and recenter. Yeah. And, like, Gene's whole thing with eye contact, it comes up once or twice. It's not a very common thing, but it's usually just because, like, he goes the other end of the scale to a lot of what you would assume about autistic people. Like, I'm uncomfortable with eye contact, but some people, when they're masking, go the other end of the scale and make constant eye contact really intensely because they know they're supposed to. It's we recently watched a Next Generation episode where Data learns small talk, and it's very much that kind of like, well, I've learned I'm supposed to do this, so I'll just do it the exact same way with no nuance whatsoever.
I feel like we need to make it clear, again, a Star Trek tangent. Send the Star Trek tangent alarm. I complain about Next Gen. Don't give a shit about Picard. He can suck my ass. I would literally die for Data.
Yeah, I've said it 100 times in episodes before.
I love him so much. I love Geordi. I love Data. I love Worf and O'Brien, but that's mostly because I know what they're like in Deep Space Nine.
Basically, we have our own secret team in Next Gen that we care about that we call the Golden Boys, which is everyone who wears a yellow shirt.
And Diana and Crusher are really great now in the later seasons when they've sort of like managed to accumulate enough character points to actually have good episodes.
But yeah, like this is another Star Trek tangent. Yeah. We'll get back to Bob's Burgers. But my point was more, Gene does feel like someone who's learned what he's supposed to do and just applies it as told. No hesitation, no embarrassment.
Yeah.
And that's very common. Like, it's a lot of people who are in a certain place with their autism, their certain understanding with it anyway, will get to a point where they start feeling very anxious about it and start feeling very self-conscious. There's a lot of people who just never develop that. It's very much a personal thing. Like, I know my younger brother doesn't really feel the same anxiety I do about, like, not doing things correctly. It's just the way some people are socialised. There is a debate as to whether it's, like, girl autism versus boy autism, and girls are socialised to do social stuff properly, and boys are allowed to do whatever. That's a massive oversimplification, and it is a big reason why we're going to be talking mostly about boys in this series, because that's the version of autism that gets shown the most.
We're going to make an effort to also talk about female characters, because obviously that is super important to...
Please do send suggestions to us.
We have some already, but yeah.
It's not as many as I would hope, and it is something that is a problem, I would say, because it is a big part of the stereotyping, is that it is so typical to, like, how little boys present. But even Gene isn't really that. Like, when he goes to this like sleepover, he does call his dad a son of a bitch for leaving, which is very sweet.
Again, using that adult rating to like it's the best of its ability. Little kids cussing is always so fucking funny.
It's like a really soft, the son of a bitch is really leaving. It's not like he actually hates his dad, he's just like genuinely shocked that he would leave. And when he's in there for the whole night, he tries so hard to get along with Alex's parents, who are nothing like Bob and Linda. Like, they're a much more like upper class, foodie, trying to have a healthy diet. They're on a health kick.
And that thing that, you know, is everyone's nightmare when you're staying over at a friend's place, where your friend gets involved in a family tiff.
Yeah, just
at the dinner table.
Yelling at their parents. And Gene does the groaning thing again of like, I love it here.
Yeah, because Alex is not a big fan of this health kick that his parents have put him on, and he's, you know, calling the food poopy or whatever.
Yeah, they're doing a no sugar, like no additives, like 100% pure diet, you know, one of those bullshit things.
Yeah, everything is steamed.
Yeah, and
I do love steamed food though.
Yeah, but like,
I mean, I know kids don't.
It's also the dietary thing of just like take out anything that's quote bad.
I could absolutely go for some steamed salmon. It's what they're having for dinner, and I'm like, ooh.
Yeah. Gene says, I'm not used to seeing the fish part of the fish. Usually it's hidden inside a stick. It's a very sweet conversational stuff. Again, it's just taking what he knows and trying to apply it to a conversation. There's a whole subplot with Teddy in this. Teddy's really funny in this. He's one of, I guess, Bob's friend, I say in quotes.
But unwilling friend.
Unwilling friend. Bob doesn't really want to be friends with him. Teddy's great.
He
says a lot of funny things in this. The bit with Sting and cheese and crackers in this episode is so funny. I don't really want to spoil it by talking about it here. And Bob just leaves, and that whole scene is irrelevant to the bit we're talking about. Gene and Alex watch documentary. Gene doesn't enjoy it, but he sits and watches it anyway, because that's what he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
That's what Tina said he would have to do, is watch a movie at the sleepover. He's literally just following the checklist of what Tina told him. It's like, you're going to have dinner, you're going to watch a movie.
He's still in the routine.
Yeah, he's still doing the routine, and he finds it a bit easier doing that. They even show him brushing his teeth with different toothpaste that he's never seen before, and he has a little, like, don't like it.
Yeah.
In that scene, and it's like, oh, honey. But when they all get into bed, Gene's like full panic again, because he's scared of falling asleep in a place that's not familiar. And he literally screams at this woman, "You're not my mum! Oh my god, sorry, sweet dreams!"
She comes in to tell them goodnight, and obviously she's doing it different from how Linda would do it. And
he literally whispers to himself, a thing that I've whispered to myself in many a scenario, I hate this, this is a living hell. It's like a very calm, no danger situation at this point. Which does change.
I call lots of things living hell. I feel like that's just...
Living hell's very descriptive.
Yeah.
What fresh hell is this is a pretty common go-to for me. But
sometimes I'll cycle home from work and I'm like, I'm in hell, I'm in hell, I'm in hell.
But it turns out that Alex says it's showtime, and then Jean says, I don't want to watch it.
Yeah. Because at this point, because one of the other things Tina mentioned is that, after you've gone to bed, you're supposed to, sneak out of bed and, gossip about boys.
And eat some midnight snacks.
And eat midnight snacks. So when Alex gets out of bed and, oh, we're doing this, Jean obviously assumes that, oh yeah, this is the part of the bed where we sneak into the kitchen to get midnight snacks.
And then they sneak downstairs, and they give a snack to Alex's dog, Donut.
Donut is a great name for a dog, by the way.
Yeah, Jean insists he's more of a wet food guy than a dry food guy, because he thinks the dog snack is for him, because it's midnight snack time. And then they run away.
Yeah, they're giving a snack to the dog so it won't bark.
Yeah, so they can sneak out of the house, and so Alex can run away. Jean was not told about this. Jean was not prepared for this. And he is still in his pyjamas with just shoes on, and they're walking down the street. And also, Jean explicitly says, I was told we were going to talk about boys.
Alex wants to run away because he can't deal with his parents' diet anymore. He only gets like one tiny scoop of ice cream a month or something, and he's over it.
Jean even says, your parents seem okay-ish. I mean, they shouldn't be allowed near food, but it's like very much, I can understand where you're coming from, but this is not what I agree to.
This is not a proportionate response to this.
I don't want to run away from your house. I'm in my jammies, my nighttime jammies.
Implying that you have a daytime jammies,
exactly.
Which is as every sensible person should.
Yeah, I mean, that's not just an autism thing. That's any sensible person should have day pajamas and night pajamas.
I need to buy new pajamas.
Sitting around in pajamas is the best. Jean's got it right. They decide to sneak out to a cabin in the woods, according to Alex.
He built his own cabin in the woods.
Which
it's a plastic tarp over a couple of sticks.
Yeah, it's real bad. And Jean says, I don't want to go to a cabin in the woods. Haven't you seen Cabin in the Woods? Well, I haven't either, but the music for the ads was terrifying. It's like, Jean's so literal and so, like, applying his experience to everything. It's very funny. It works for good comedy, but it's also just what people do when they have autism a lot of the time. I will talk about my brother a lot in this. He is a lot like this. The number of times we've been talking about something and it's just like, this is where a Star Wars reference would be helpful. It's like, it's really not, but okay. It's that thing of like, well, I have something to add to this. It doesn't really matter if it matches with the rest of what's going on. We go back to the other plot for a little bit. Yeah, they're in a bet about who snores more, that kind of thing. Like,
turns out they both snore, because they're old.
Yeah, it's a very typical sitcom thing. And Jean and Alex are sitting in their tent in the woods, which is just some plastic trash bags over some sticks, and their sleeping bags are just trash bags. And Alex wants to tie them up over their heads, and Jean says, that's bad because we need air.
He's got like a tiny stash of like junk food.
And most of it is just sugar packets, not even food. They decide to just try and sleep out in the woods.
But it starts raining.
And then the plastic tarp just collapses and they get soaked, and Jean complains about getting wet. He says he has enough food to last several months, and Jean replies, it's not enough food to last the next few minutes while I stress eat and convince you to go home. They realise it's not going to work, them staying in the woods. So
Jean convinces Alex that it's not going to work, because Alex is kind of beyond the point of,
yeah, his current plan
sensibly.
Is to hitchhike onto a plane to Dubai, and Jean's like, yeah, that's a bad idea.
Let's go home to my house.
So
please.
They sneak back to the Belcher's house, and Jean manages to wake up Louise and Tina. They sneak downstairs, and Jean says, they're going to want to call Alex's parents if we tell our parents, and we're not doing that for some reason. It's like very much I know there's reasoning been given, but I don't get it, so it's wrong. It's bad. I don't want anything to do with it.
So they managed to sneak back. I love in Bob's Burgers when the kids do a heist. It's always great.
Yeah.
They basically heist the boys back into the house.
Because they realise if the parents never realise he snuck out, he won't lose the little bit of a treat that he gets every month, and they can just like carry on as though nothing happened, and it's the best case scenario for them. And Alex still doesn't want to go back, and Jean says what I think is kind of the message of this episode, which is we're sneaking back into your house and going to sleep, because sometimes we have to toughen up and do stuff you don't want to do, like a no-sugar diet or a sleepover in someone else's house. And maybe, hopefully, those things will make us stronger in some way. And from an autism perspective, this is kind of like a fraught message. There is a thing of, like, you can power through anything. But I kind of prefer the more subtle thing they're saying here of, like, with practice, you do get more comfortable doing these things.
Yeah.
You do get better at doing these things. There's not a thing of, like, you could definitely do it. It's like if you can push yourself a little, you can improve.
And I think it's also about how life will, whether you can handle it or not, whether you want it or not, life will throw unexpected shit at you. Like, Gene was sort of set up to be slightly uncomfortable. He was ready to go through this sleepover, and then the world and this crazy kid Alex throws this whole other shit up at him, running away. But he manages to, deal with it. Like, manages to, work through it and talk this kid down from his stupid decision. And how, you can get through difficult things, regardless of, whether it's something to do with social anxiety or autism or just life in general. Sometimes life will throw shit at you, and you can power through it because you kind of have to, because you don't have a choice.
Yeah, I think with Gene, Gene is very aware of what his own limits are, and it seems like his family are very aware of what his own limits are, so they know how far to push it. And it's very clear in this, he's sleeping over for one night with a friend he already knew. Not very well, but a friend that, they knew wasn't going to be really out there. There wasn't a ton of other people. It wasn't that far from their house. There's a lot of, control to this new situation.
Yeah.
So it's kind of clear that they're doing it within his own, limit of what he's comfortable to push himself to do.
Yeah.
So they decide to sneak back into the house. Louise, who is 8, breaks in through the front door using a lockpick.
Louise is a great character.
She is wonderful. Again, Kristen Schaal is the best. But Louise's character is genuinely unhinged, but in a way that you don't expect. It's not like Stewie from Family Guy, where it's they're just violent. Louise is just every other 8-year-old girl I've ever met, where it's they're 5 minutes from just starting a fire, and it's well, that just seems in character.
Louise's wants are very much those of an 8-year-old, but her intelligence level is evil mastermind. So it's again, putting together a complicated heist to get into the confiscated items locker at school. She is slightly scary because, she's a evil genius, but also not that scary because her goals are very mundane and not that take over the world-ish.
Yeah, it's not cartoony, which is weird for a cartoon. But we'll probably talk about Louise at some point as well, because I think you could definitely make an argument for her being on the spectrum as well. There's a whole subplot to do with these Japanese films called Hawk and Chick, which I think really explores that aspect of her really well, but we'll probably get to that at some point. It also explores her relationship with Bob, which is amazing.
It's so cute.
But basically, Alex and Jean successfully sneak back into the house. They catch Alex's mum eating ice cream.
In the middle of the night, just sitting on the floor next to the fridge, like an animal.
Yeah, so they realise that, everyone has their limits, and,
adults are hypocrites.
Adults are hypocrites. And Jean goes back up to the room, and they both get back into bed, and Alex immediately has a sugar crash and just falls asleep. So Jean is sitting in bed, and he's okay, here comes the scary part. Need to fall asleep. And he blinks, and it's the morning.
Yeah.
And he got through the whole night, and there was no problem at all. And that's my experience, at least, of the whole sleepover thing, of, you build up everything beforehand, and you get so scared before it happens, that when it finally does happen, you're just oh, alright then. I guess that's that.
That's the thing about sleeping. You just close your eyes and then suddenly it's 6 hours later.
I mean, it's true of a lot of social things. For me, my anxiety is all based before the event. And then when I'm there, fine. It's always fine. But it's just you get worried beforehand because you don't know what's going to happen. And then when it's happening, you don't have time to worry about what's going to happen.
Yep.
So, Gene gets through it and we're all very proud of him. He never wants to do a sleepover again. Understandably, considering how this one went.
Horrible experience.
He goes back to the restaurant. And
I kind of don't want to say this joke now because I think it's something I want people to experience on their own.
I mean,
because it's so funny.
We could do another time skip thing here, but I do also want to go back to the previous thing before, where Gene, when he's lying in bed nervous,
I
wrote down the exact things he says because it's a list of sensory things that are familiar and relaxing to him. Mum smell, dad smell, aioli, Rachel Ray, Luke Cage, and then he falls asleep.
Aioli is comforting. I love aioli.
But it's he talks about these smells that are familiar, and it's it really ties into that sensory reliance thing. You can get sensory overload, but having strong sensory, I guess faculties is the right word, does also mean you can find them additionally comforting in a way that somebody who is neurotypical might not. So it's kind of sweet to see Gene kind of have that centering process that is actually suited to what he's like.
Yeah.
And then he goes back to the restaurant, and then we have the best joke in the whole episode. Which, do you want to spoil it? Should we do a time skip?
No, I don't want to spoil it. I don't.
But
our delivery isn't going to be that good.
Tina and Bob, one up something that Gene says in the fucking funniest thing.
Bob's Burgers has a couple of jokes like that, where it's someone will say, a joke, it's and then someone reply to this with, an even funnier thing, and then, it's, kind of, built to like a sort of like punchline. It's a joke that's all punchline.
Yeah, and every single one hits you in a different way.
Yeah.
This isn't one that's related to our whole discussion of this theory, but if you're going to watch a specific episode, I would watch the one about the Mad Pooper. It's so funny. It has my favourite scene in the whole show. If you want to get into it, I would say you could probably watch the episode with first. No context needed. It's so funny. But basically, Jean comes back and Linda says, now you never have to sleep outside the house again, not when you go to college or when you graduate college or even when you get married. And Jean cheers. And it's like this whole thing of like, yeah, you can relax now. Like, I don't think it's obviously not serious, but like it is the whole mama's boy type thing.
Yeah.
And it's a sweet part of their relationship. And I genuinely really love how Jean connects to Linda and to Bob in these episodes. And how it's really clear his whole family just kind of gets what his situation is.
Yeah.
It's one of the best things about this show.
Yeah, like, as much as they make fun of each other and, like, get on each other's nerves, they do understand each other on, like, a deep, fundamental level. Like how, a real healthy family does.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is just our conclusion now. Like, we've kind of naturally come into our points again.
Kind of feels like that.
But, like, first point, it is extremely entertaining. Both these episodes are wonderful, and I think that they're just so funny, so accessible, and even if you don't want to, like, analyse them any deeper than just watching them, both extremely high quality episodes of the show.
Yeah.
The second one has a little bit of, like, secondhand, oh god, no.
Yeah.
But, like, not so much that it's hard to watch. Like, I'm really sensitive to secondhand embarrassment, and it wasn't a problem for me in this episode. You just kind of feel for Jean. They're both really fun episodes, and the show in general, so long as you skip the very early episodes, is definitely worth watching.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like animation, it's really... As adult animation goes, it's not raunchy. It doesn't really push...
It's a little bit raunchy sometimes, I feel like.
Yeah, a little bit, but like not... Like we said before, we just kind of went into all this detail about whether you could handle it or not and the qualities, but like, in terms of animation, it's not really like cartoony. A lot of this is kind of used to shape these people's improv with each other.
As far as cartoons go, like the actual plot and storytelling is very grounded in reality.
I am excited to see what they do for the movie.
Oh yeah, that's going to be interesting. Another thing cool about Bob's Burgers, lots of good music in it.
Good music, pretty diverse cast, and there is a whole thing, read into it as much as you want, there's a whole thing of Bob just being an awkward bi man who's just been married to a woman his whole life, and he keeps getting hit on by random cashiers, and he just doesn't really know how to respond.
It doesn't happen that often, but it happens sometimes.
It happens more than once, and it's never that like a queer panic joke, it's always like I'm just not very good for you, you could probably do better.
Also, I need to get this turkey home, because I have a whole thing about turkeys.
The whole thing, there's a ton of really fun characters, there's a ton of really fun little like set pieces. You will fall in love with at least like half of the family. If there's any ones you don't like, you will love the other ones enough to kind of make the difference. I mean, in terms of real, like, reading it as an autism, like, perspective, I think this is one of the really rare universal goods in terms of Jean, and I don't know if it's an intentional thing as they were trying to make up for that kind of controversy from that joke in the first season, but, like, I've seen a lot of people kind of connect, especially to Laser-inth, try and connect to that, like, sense of acceptance, but also, like, this is just how this kid is.
Yeah.
And while I'm usually not a fan of people, backing out of putting the term autism on a character because they feel like they have to be responsible then, looking at you, Mark Hannon, I will get into that one day, fuck you. Tilda's heard this rant from me far too many times.
No, I'm just laughing because if no one knows what book we're talking about, just random British man Hannah hates. That's all you need to know.
There's a lot of random British men I hate, and I'm sure we'll be talking about one of them in great detail next week. Yeah, spoiler. But not next week. Week after. God, we're doing it 2 weeks.
At some point.
Eventually, you'll hear me talk about how much I hate this specific British man. But in this particular show, they don't use the label, and honestly, I feel like that kind of adds power to this reading. This idea of, like, it's a family who wouldn't have access to that kind of
because that's another thing that's really cool about Bob's Burgers. Talking over you again. I feel like this is going to be like a running thing, and people listening to this show driving them insane. I interrupt Hannah constantly. I used to be even worse at it. Like, we went to uni together, and, like, at the end of, like, seminars and lecture stuff, Hannah would be like, hey, you kind of interrupted me there. And I didn't even notice. It's something I'm trying to get better at. I hope it isn't too annoying to listen to.
I mean, it's just how we talk anyway. I think we forget that it's even there a lot of the time. I mean, it does not bother me. Don't feel like you've got to jump in and defend me to Tilda interrupting me, because it is just how we talk. I'm very used to it. And it's kind of part of the flow of how we, like, have conversations, so you're just gonna have to deal with it, audience.
Oh, we're friends or whatever.
But yeah, you were saying...
Oh yeah, Bob's Burgers it makes a point out of... It's very explicit that the Belcher's family are poor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a lot of jokes about the fact that the restaurant isn't going well, but there's a lot of kind of like acknowledging that they have very limited funds and very limited access to things like entertainment or, to opportunities and all this stuff. And it's kind of rare for, like, especially like American sitcoms to be so... It's like joke about, how the people in Friends can afford that big apartment. Mm-hmm. Like, a lot of shows don't acknowledge the sort of like reality of the economic situation these characters by all means should be in. But Bob's Burgers is not like that. It's very clear that this is a family of, working class, kind of poor people who are barely scraping by.
I mean, if I could compare it to anything, and it's not a very... I'm not a fan of The Middle. I don't know if you've heard of The Middle.
I don't think so.
It's a live-action sitcom. Very similar concept. It's about a middle-class family in the middle of America who don't have very much money. They have a youngest son who probably is on the spectrum, but it's very much the jokes are about the fact he's weird. But, like, the thing is with Bob's Burgers, it's kind of thing of, like, their situation isn't massively depressing. Like, what they're going through isn't easy, but they still really love each other and they have a good time. Like, there's whole episodes where it's just them finally having enough money to buy a new couch, and then they realise they don't want to get rid of their crappy old couch because it's what they're used to.
Yeah.
Or they'll talk about how their car is shitty, but it's, like, what they're used to and it's what they like. Or, like, even just Bob will be jealous of some other restaurant having a nicer oven, and he'll start talking to the utensils and being like, oh, I still love you, but I would like an oven that works. Stuff like that. It's very...
It's not that they're, like, it's not that, they're, fine with the situation and, like, you don't need to worry about them. It's just that, they are living their lives, so they're getting by the skin of their teeth.
And having Jean kind of fit this role that we're analysing it as, it really does make me think of this thing of, there are going to be thousands and thousands and thousands of children, even adults, who never get access to this kind of, like, understanding of themselves because they just don't have the means to access it. But it doesn't change who they are.
Yeah.
Like, if you put the label of autistic on Jean, it wouldn't change who the character is either way. And I think having that in this is kind of more relatable than anything. Like, relatability is such a big part of Bob's Burgers because you can't really relate to a lot of people in these sitcoms where they have these ridiculously extravagant lives that you would never have yourself. Like, I have met people like Bob. I know people like Linda. Linda is everyone's wine aunt. I've met kids like Louise, like I just said. I think a lot of teenage girls felt like Tina when they were teenage girls.
Yeah.
It's something that, like, really has that grounded connectability, and if you are autistic and you want to try and have someone you can connect to, I think Jean is a pretty good example, because people do accommodate him. He struggles sometimes. He has odd interests and really strong fixations, but he is so funny and so loved and genuinely a wonderful character, and he doesn't fall into a lot of the very, like, frustrating stereotypes of, like, being bad at talking to people, because sometimes you can just veer the other way and be really confident at talking to people, but still not very good at it. Like, it's wonderful, and I think it is definitely worth watching if this is a read you want to do on it.
I think so too.
Yeah, watch Bob's Burgers. It is on Amazon Prime, at least in the UK. So if you, like we said before, don't support Amazon if you can get away with it, but do check it out. I think it's totally worth it. I think that's everything for this week.
I think so.
Yeah. As always, we do want people to try and, like, contact us and tell us if you've got other ideas. Share the video around. We are hoping to get this onto other platforms eventually. Once we professionalise up, we might even be getting a microphone at some point.
Don't say that. We gotta
Eventually. Who knows? Delivery is a mystery because the UK just shut down again, so we may be making a lot of these all in short thing because we'll just be bored. But basically, if you have any ideas, like we said, any female characters who you think fit into the spectrum especially, we would love to hear about it. I just want more things to watch.
Do you want to say that email again?
I guess I'll just do the proper outro. So this was Spectrum Projection with your hosts Hannah and Tilda. Our theme music is Summer Longing by Tilda. And send us suggestions for future topics to spectrumprojection@gmail.com. Thanks, we'll see you soon.
Bye!